My fellow Kootenay Columbians, it is an honor to be joining you from the steps of the Supreme Court of Canada. Behind me is an important pillar of our democracy and the highest court in the land. The decisions made here are the ultimate application of Canadian law. Today, I'd like to talk to you about Bill C-21 and the government's efforts to remove legal firearms from lawful Canadians. Fortunately, I have an extensive background in law enforcement and during my service career dealt directly with gangs and organized crime. It's amazing to me that the government and public safety minister did not provide any statistics to support the idea of buying legal firearms from legal firearm owners and how that will have an impact on reducing gun violence in Canada. And how is Bill C-21 will protect public safety from gang activities, illegal gun smuggling, and crimes committed with firearms. Who and where is the minister receiving his evidence-based information from? It appears Prime Minister Trudeau and Minister Blair want to prohibit military-style assault weapons, including airsoft .22 caliber, simply because they are camo painted and look mean. It's amazing how many individuals think that it's legal to possess a military assault gun. You can't. They're already illegal and prohibited. When I first looked at the content of Bill C-21, I read through to see if the changes would be more effective, efficient, and accountable going forward. When I talk about effective, I look at how it is working today to see whether or not this new legislation will specifically have an impact on gun offenses committed by gangs and organized crime. Unfortunately, there are no stats supporting the notion that buying legal firearms from legal firearm owners will have an impact on gang and organized crime gun offenses. Again, this is not evidence-based. The National Police Federation stated that costly and current legislation, such as the Order in Council prohibiting various firearms and the proposed buyback program by the federal government targeted at legal firearm owners, does not address the current and emerging theme or the urgent threats to public safety. Talking about supporting our frontline police officers, they need the tools to support the challenges of gang and organized crime. If public safety wants to spend billions, then perhaps pay equity is a good place to start. It's unacceptable that our national police force, the RCMP, is 123 out of 140 on a pay equity. For example, a first-class constable is paid $86,000 a year, where a first class in the top 5 are between $107,000 and $109,000. In fact, all the police officers I've spoken to who are engaged in the front lines with gangs and organized crime every day have said they are not arresting any gangsters who have a possession and acquisition license or a restricted possession and acquisition license. This may be new information to the government, so I'd like to confirm, which I did, based on first-hand experience and discussions with officers, that criminals are indeed using illegal guns when committing violent gun crimes. In fact, more and more these criminals are using ghost guns, those that have no serial number, made from kits and are untraceable. This new legislation does not include provisions for this and therefore won't be effective at removing guns from gangsters. Efficient. The buyback program for 1,500 different firearms is estimated at $1 to $2 billion, with some placing it as high as $5 billion. Here we are in a very difficult financial position as a result of the health crisis, with inflation rising because of out-of-control spending, and we're trying to justify spending billions more on a buyback, legal firearms from legal firearm owners. This is, quite frankly, very much like spending someone else's money. In fact, that's exactly what it is. The government is funding this OIC gun ban venture with tax dollars collected from the hardworking Canadians, the very Canadians whose guns they are looking to repossess. The Liberals' program, the Liberals say, is designed to protect Canadians. It's just not evidence-based. So imagine instead if we put that money into crime prevention and enforcement. Crime prevention is very difficult and takes years for success. But unlike Bill C-21, success can be realized. In speaking with a full-time gang enforcement officer, a youth program in BC called Shatter the Image has experienced success in actual crime reduction. This anti-gang initiative is tailor-made for youth, parents, and educators and community groups. The project's main aim is to educate and engage youth at all levels of risk and designed to shatter the glamorized image of gangs and provide youth with valuable information on making positive choices to avoid the gang lifestyle. The program shares a true story of gang life and its consequences, including the dangers of dial-a-doping and how social media is used to glamorize gang life and recruit youth. The result is youth are making better choices. Instead of spending billions on a buyback program that won't have any meaningful impact on reducing gun crime, why wouldn't a government instead invest in crime prevention and, more specifically, scaling a successful program like Shattering the Image and installing it in schools across the country? showing true leadership. Instead of unfairly targeting lawful Canadian firearm owners, such as the farmers and sports people in the riding of Kootenay, Columbia, this government might consider keeping Canadians safe by sending gun smuggling criminals and gang members to prison. Let's remove the automatic bail for those accused of gang crime, create tougher sentences for violent gang crime, and make it easier for prosecutors to convict known gangs, not Bill C-22, which eliminates mandatory prison sentences. I was talking with the gang enforcement members in BC who utilize air support, a helicopter 16 hours a day. They need 24 hours a day coverage. As gangland shootings occur almost daily, suspects flee in a vehicle at extreme speeds, making it impossible to apprehend without air support. Issues like this are consistent across Canada. Instead of spending billions on buying legal guns from lawful Canadians, let's support enforcement with the tools frontline officers require. Funding must be a current issue because an integrated border enforcement unit in BC responsible for gang enforcement along the Canada-US border has a 50% vacancy rate. How does that demonstrate that the federal government is taking border enforcement seriously? Accountability. There is nothing in Bill C-21 regarding expectations. You would think that when spending billions of dollars there would be a reference to a target in reduction of gun violence. For example, a 20% reduction in gun violence in year one. Who will be accountable? I could take my entire 10 minutes to talk about accountability, but I struggle with the public safety environment with its recent issues. Let's put that aside and talk about what's important for parliamentarians: to focus on reducing gun-related violent crimes. In an effort to be successful, we need to bring in subject matter experts on gang violence, investigations, and operational police officers, not police administrators. Canada has tried many approaches to battle gun violence, and we are having a tough time winning the war. We need an approach void of ideology and built on substance that starts with crime prevention. Looking at solutions like Shatter the Image, where we could provide national leadership across Canada supporting frontline officers. Crime prevention, as I mentioned, is very challenging and takes time. We need to not only involve police expertise, but also academia, industry, and victims to help develop programs specifically to deal with gun violence. There are many successful programs where academia have worked with police, such as the university-led research studies in British Columbia, where academia research provided a different perspective on programs to utilize for crime prevention and crime reduction. We also seem to have a consistent issue: intelligence information sharing, where we're not sharing intelligence. The federal government needs to support and provide leadership for safe information sharing environment across Canada to include all law enforcement agencies. The red flag proposal contained within Bill C-21 takes away the experienced police officer who has the investigative background, not an administrator, to ensure public safety is a priority. Third parties with no experience in deciding on seizing firearms is not evidence-based. When looking at Bill C-21, I feel it creates an urban-rural divide. In fact, I was talking to a friend of my daughter's who lives in the city. She asked me why people need guns. I explained to her that many people in my riding hunt to put food in the freezer, and what they shoot they provide to their families for much of the year. Amanda responded and said, well, why don't they just go down to the street to the Safeway or the meat market? I explained many residents of rural communities do not have access to large grocery stores and that their families enjoy wild meat. She reflected for a moment and said, I never thought of it that way because I've always lived within walking distance of many fresh food markets. I then explained there were many rural living, law-abiding British Columbia Canadians who sport shoot as a hobby. These are highly vetted individuals who travel to a safe location, transporting their firearms safely to compete and enjoy their sport. Very much like Amanda's golf clubs. She's an avid golfer. At the end of our conversation, Amanda said she had no idea as her experience with rural Canada was very limited. I've always been evidence-based when looking at change or how to improve operations in policing law enforcement. My friends in Kootenay, Columbia, Bill C-21 is not evidence-based. As a result, I cannot support it. I will, however, continue to pressure the government on your behalf to take meaningful steps in the fight to deal with the real problem, gangs and organized crime. I'm Rob Morrison, Member of Parliament, Kootenay, Columbia.